first ever Feet in the Circle podcast, a more informal look at the game in England and abroad. I'm David Plumhoff.
I'm Vince Wills.
And I'm Sean Prendergast.
On today's show, we discuss what are the best venues in England and try to rank our top 10. We also look at how lockdown will affect the standard of play and what to expect when we come back to full capacity. We will also have a little look at what's going on over in France in the PPF Grand Finals. And we may also, if we've got time, talk about the recent ban for Kiki Dubois. So without further ado, let's do it. Hello, lads. How are you?
Not too shabby.
All good, thanks, mate.
Sean, you all right? So let's start then. Let's talk about venues, peace, all that, all that shaz, all that jazz. Sorry. What do you two think are the best venues then? What we're talking about here?
So, I mean, would you primarily focus on the terrains or just the venue in like in general, facilities and stuff like that? Or
I think personally, the whole package really. I know that's a difficult one because you couldn't really say there's any venue in England where it has everything perfectly. But I mean, the one that always sticks out for me is Gravesend because you have the level of terrain is very difficult. You also have the clubhouse, which is, a little walk away. And so for me, that's a very good venue. It'll definitely be up there on my best venues.
Yeah, Gravesend's definitely a good one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It kind of has the full package, but I'm not sure it would make my number one, but it definitely would be up there. I can think of a couple of other venues that I'd probably put higher.
Go on.
One thing I noticed with Gravesend is I think after a day of playing on it or half a day of playing on it, the stones seem to obviously shift around quite a lot.
Yeah.
But there's quite a lot on top. Yeah, so because they're not integrated into the ground, it stops your ball to the point where you can actually, point quite badly and the ball will stop because there's so many stones on the piste. That was just the only thing with that piece that I think needs a bit of work is maybe trying to embed the stones a little bit more to make it even more difficult. But they're fantastic terrains.
I always find that because the stones are very loose, what happens is they kind of spread out to the sides. And then what you do is, as much as it's still a difficult piece, it becomes a lot more. It allows for more of a roll rather than a like a lob.
Yeah, it does. But the really positive thing about Gravesend with any piece that's got stones on it is it does mean you have to play properly. You have to play with a slightly higher ball. You have to shoot ball to ball. You can't get away with scooting at Gravesend unless you get lucky.
Yeah, you're used to that. What about then? So, in terms of football, a football pitch, we always say that a football pitch needs to be perfectly flat, almost like a carpet. Do you think really in Pétanque it would be better or beneficial for the game if all terrains were flat and a bit dusty so that you've got the best of the performance that you can have rather than it being hard?
No, not at all.
No,
I don't think so.
You believe that? I agree with you, by the way. I think it needs to be hard. It needs to be stones everywhere. But I suppose from a purist point of view and from TV point of view, I'm assuming that if you don't know what Pétanque is and you're watching someone get kicks on a terrain, they'll be like, well, what's this? I don't really want to watch this.
But then the terrains often that are televised, in France and abroad and stuff, they're very rarely easy. They often look easy because of obviously the camera distance and stuff like that. But they're so often playing on rock hard car parks, concrete basically with a very, very thin set of shillings. So, I mean, anything underneath, half the time you can't see it. And it is rock hard. So your balls bounce all over the place. It's a completely different ball game. I mean, social players here, people that want to, have a casual game on a Sunday. And we've seen that in London, for example. A lot of them would prefer a simpler piece because they can get the ball nearer to the jack. That is the answer to them. And it's trying to sort of work on things so that they appreciate as well that variance in the game and different types of shot selection, stuff like that it's an experience and it's part of the game, and that's how the game is played. Any surface is supposed to be a Pétanque surface, right?
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that is the joys of having a mixture of all sorts of different types of piece, because actually it's fantastic to have piece like Gravesend, Arlesey, Worthing, but also as long as you're not playing on them week in week out, you've got the likes of Oxshot where you have to play a different type of game, like a roll and
I trust you to bring up Oxshot
and a lower shot. Personally, I think they should hold every single competition at Oxshot.
See, I do quite like the Oxshot piece, like just for the reason that one, it pisses everyone off. So am I allowed to say that? It annoys everyone.
As long as it's after Watershed.
Yeah, the piece in Oxshot seems to frustrate everyone because everyone's scooting and stuff in competitions. But it adds a different variant to the game, and I'll scoot till the cows come home on there just to wind opposition up if they're going to get affected by it.
Yeah, it's not a problem to have certain competitions on piece like that, as long as it's not consistently on terrains like that. Because ultimately, when you have piece like Worthing, Arlesey, even Gravesend to a certain extent, your skill set is far more on show. You have to be able to play a lob. You have to be able to shoot ball to ball, which when you go abroad, more often than not, that's the kind of skill set you have to show. But there will be certain occasions where you do have to play the low one or come in with a scoot. So it's good to have that variety, for sure. Personally, my two favourite venues, Gravesend, like I said, would be up there, but it wouldn't be in my top two. My top two are Arlesey and Worthing for me.
But does Arlesey still? Whoa, are you still allowed to play on the car park bit at Arlesey?
That's up in the air at the moment because
it was good, I have to say.
Yeah, potentially some development going on, but that's one of my favourite pieces, along with Worthing. But when I say Worthing, I mean the car park piece at Worthing.
The top ones at Worthing are just really basic, aren't they? They're club terrains, what I would call club terrains.
Yeah, definitely.
There's another terrain that doesn't get mentioned much because I think they only moved there in the last couple of years, and that they hold, I think they're open, and that's about it. But another good shout is Borden.
Yeah.
They did some really good work where they moved. I think it's an ice rink or a hockey pitch or something in the indoor area, but the outdoor bit, they've made a really good surface. It was slightly heavy on rocks on the sides.
Yeah.
But it had the foundations of a really challenging piece. Played there a couple of times. And it was great.
They hosted their inaugural tournament there, and they've built like two sections of the piste, and one section is like roly poly, what I'd call a club terrain, and then the other section was really rocky, wasn't it? It was a bit dusty and a bit soft, so it does break up a lot. But I think over time, when that gets bedded in and they can clear the rocks around the outside, you've got the makings of a really, really testing terrain there. And I forgot all about that one, actually. I remember playing on it and thinking, actually, this is something Pétanque England need to look at using for. I think at the time there wasn't rankings at the time. I think when I first played it about 3 years ago it was still one day qualifiers or whatever it is. So I was like, they need to use this for maybe the top 8 because it was such a challenging piece. So that's another one that I think people maybe have forgotten about, but it was a great piece, like you say, Vince.
No, it was, yeah, definitely. It's
what about Heckmondike? That's like 4 different styles of piece in one venue, isn't it?
They're different colours, but they seem to play very similar from what I gather. I mean, one of them has, I think the nearest one to the clubhouse on the left-hand side as you're facing out, it was like quite a soft chilling, and that one was quite forgiving for your shots. The other 3 seemed really similar to me from what I remember.
They
weren't particularly challenging, but it was a great venue.
The ones in the far corner on the if you were coming out of the clubhouse, far corner left, they were like a red colour, almost clay-like. And I found them they weren't like heavy stones or big stones, but what they were there was a lot of contours. There was a lot of contours on the piece, and it was almost on a slope. So as much as you could get away with, say, scooting on it, what you couldn't do was get away with missing your line, because if you get your line and weight wrong, it just goes to pot. But the ones on the right-hand side were a bit more challenging, I thought. They were a bit more stonier, a bit more softer, so it was good for carrows, I remember that. But in terms of the actual venue, the venue itself was really good. It's open, isn't it? A lot of people can see what's going on, and I suppose they get quite a lot of exposure there as well.
Yeah, it is. It's such a good event that they brought in the British Open. Yeah, I think one of their pointers I think I'd love to see is maybe if they're allowed to customize the piece slightly for the events, just to make it even more variants. And the way they do the Swiss system means you'll probably play a bit everywhere as well. So yeah, that would be quite a cool thing to add. Because yeah, you're right. The venue's brilliant. There's lots of space. I think from what I remember, Matt Blyton saying there's room to expand it as well if it goes in that direction.
Did you not play there, Vince?
Yeah, I've played every year.
Oh, yeah. It's a great tournament as well, isn't it? Very professional. That's what I like about it. There's nothing worse than I never understand this in Pétanque as it is having a tournament where you can play the final before the silver final or the silver semi. It's really odd, Pétanque. We never showcase a final, but Heckman, they did. The British Open, they made sure that final was a main event. I think that's something that every tournament, big tournament, should learn from.
Yeah, I mean, as a competition, it was really well run when I played in it, and you'd have to say, as a whole, that venue's got to be in the top 10, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What about Cobbitts?
The N2 piece, yes.
The terrain, I think the problem with a terrain like Cobbitts is it's a great venue, like where everything's situated, where the clubhouse situation, the bar and everything, the big open space for like your food and at lunchtime, and the actual layout of the terrain with the it's almost like a what's it called? Like not a stand, but like a roof, isn't it? There's kind of like a roof down one end, and I think the actual venue itself is very good, but the terrains, 80% of the terrains are literally flat and what I would call club terrains, aren't they?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because the actual club itself is really well run, and the catering and everything to do with
Isn't there a lovely lady there who makes killer cakes?
Lynn.
She was lovely from what I remember.
They are.
I've only met her once or twice.
And that is the one really positive side of Cobbitts, but I'm not overly keen on the piece. I mean, for me, a good piece is something that a venue you go to and you've got to concentrate for the whole day, and you've got to really put in your heart and soul into it. And the problem is with pieces like Cobbitts and to a certain extent Oxshot is that you can get lazy and it can kind of take away that enjoyment. And perhaps that's unfair to say for like those players who enjoy just the social aspect of it or the club play. That might be slightly different. But when you're playing at a certain level, you want something to challenge not just your ability, but also to challenge you mentally as well, which I don't think a flat piece personally does overly.
I always find that when you play on a hard piece, almost like Olsey and Gravesend, Worthing Car Park, by the end of the day, if you've made the final, not only are you knackered physically, your mind, you've got headache where you've been concentrating so much to make everything count, and that's something that you get abroad. Like it's very rare in England that I finish a tournament, whether I win it or not, with like a headache or feeling like I've had to concentrate. But when you go abroad, like the three of us have played in the National Deccan, and with the concentration levels you got to have to play on certain pieces, is just mad, isn't it? You come off there knackered.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the sign of a really good venue as well as a really good competition. It kind of goes hand in hand. Obviously, the better the competition it is, the more mental effort you have to put into it, but also the venue does have an impact on that as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Sean, you've played at Coates, haven't you? Have you played at Coates, Vince?
No, I know quite a bit about it. It's it's all on the driveways and stuff. It's like a mini Marseillaise, isn't it?
What's that like, Sean? Or is it random? Is it proper?
It's just completely and utterly random. It is the piece you get drawn on can be quite tricky because they are in people's driveways or on a pathway. They have some main pieces there, which they normally play the final on, but they have two sorts. They have like a flat sandy one to the right-hand side of the pub, and then to the left-hand side, they've got stony ones that are fairly similar to like Olsey. So if you get drawn on them or they play the final on them, it's really, really good. But yeah, it's really good competition, but
it's not really a venue, is it?
Well, it's not. I mean, it's not, no, but also a lot of people just use it as a social day where a lot of people get bevied up, to be perfectly honest.
That's good. I like it. What about then a venue that we probably haven't talked about yet is which I think is a great little venue is where is it in Kent where Scott does the 4-man tournament?
Meadow.
Meadow, yeah.
I think that's a great little venue. I just think the contrast in the two terrains from left to right, or however you want to look at it, just makes you have to play different. You don't get used to it if you're playing constantly on a different style of terrain. It really does make you have to think about what you're doing.
Yeah.
The only issue I have is the back terrains where they're a bit more heavier in terms of the amount of gravel. As you go to the right, it gets heavier and heavier, and you almost can't shoot. You can shoot, but you're more effectively, you're better off just playing a hard point into the balls, as Sean will know too well.
Well, we played on there. We played against each other, didn't we, in the semi-finals on the 4-man event last year? And I think I was playing with Sarah. And even, obviously I've got a good shooter playing with me, and we still played an aggressive point game against, the national Danish guys or whatever, and managed to beat them that way because, it changes the tactics. Yeah. What I would say is when I first started playing, I don't remember it ever being that heavy. I don't know if they added an extra coat.
I think they did. I think
they might need to remove a few, I think, just to make it a bit more.
It was never quite like that. It was a lot more tricky. But the ones at the front, they weren't the same either. So the ones at the front are now trickier, and the ones at the back are a little bit easier. But the contrast is good. They probably need to take a bit more off it at the back ones, but also the venue is a good venue. So yeah, that's a really good point, Hoff. I think that venue would definitely be in the top 10. I think.
Yeah, I think so. It's one of my favourite venues. I just like it's very inclusive. It's very small. It's not too small, but what I mean is you're always part of the action. There's so much you can watch every game almost from the side, and I really do like that venue. I also like Vince. Where did you used to hold that international event in London?
Oh, the old Victorians place. It was in Essex somewhere. Or the start of Essex. It was on the M25 corner. Is that really posh looking place where they ran a junior international event?
Is it the Gardens, Hanbury Gardens?
Hanbury Gardens, that's the one.
That's it. I really like that venue. That was good. That was.
It was a stunning place. I only ran the event there 1 year, but there was a couple of other competitions there. I think Simon Doble used to run his dad's competition there. From what I remember, but it was a lovely venue, and the beauty of it initially, from what I understand when I spoke to the club members, is that they were basically getting it for free because it was something to do with a charity. Okay. And then as soon as it started getting a lot of attention, from what I understand, I think I was speaking to Andy Wilmot about it. They basically started asking for a fortune to use the place. Like we're talking in the thousands to run a big event and stuff. So. Yeah, that's why we haven't probably seen anything from that.
Is it still a venue? Has it been closed down then or something?
Well, it's the stables, isn't it? So it's I guess it's still used. There's a rich guy who owns it, I assume. I think we saw him once walking around, and once he saw the sort of amount of people and coming to play, I guess he realised he could make a bit of money, and I think that's where the club kind of folded from there, basically.
Sean, have you played there?
I'm trying to think where it is. I probably have, but I can't.
We did a national there.
Oh, yes. No, I do remember. Yeah, that's a really good venue. Yeah, it's got like 3 different areas, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I know exactly where you're on about. Yeah. That's a really good venue. In fact, I'm surprised that more competitions haven't been held there, actually.
That's what I mean. That's why I wondered if it had been closed down or something. It's a bit odd.
Yeah, it was the club folded, I'm pretty sure, because of money. The guy who owns the land, I think, basically was taking him for a ride.
That's a real shame, because that is a good venue. I'll tell you what, the other venue I like, where perhaps Pétanque England could take advantage of, I guess it struggles in terms of lighting and food provision, which is a problem, but is where they hold the big event, the Crystal Palace.
Oh, Crystal Palace, yeah.
That one. I mean, it's huge. It's huge, and the pizza really good. But I suppose
how do you get that venue? I wonder what.
we went through the council. I mean, I have very little involvement with the London Championships, just because I have my fingers in enough pies, basically. But from what I understand, they go through the council, they get permission. You know, they have to get Portaloos in. Like, it's quite an official approach they've taken. Could 36 odd players go there and have a game? Yeah, like a game of football, you would. You know, you can go there casually. To run an event, you do need permission. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, there's toilet facilities nearby at the sports centre. You could run a big event there. You know, there's probably things you have to look at, like insurance and stuff like that, but it's definitely an option. And there's good variants of the piece. Like if you go on the paths on the sides, there's like big slabs of concrete in the middle of the piece where all the sort of main games were played and stuff like that. Is quite tricky as well. It is a nice little place. I mean, I've only played there, you know, at the event, and it is good. I do like it.
The only problem I think is it's open to the elements, isn't it? If it's not a sunny hot day, you don't want to be playing there, I don't think.
Oh, that is a good point, actually. There is no hiding away there at all, is there?
No, there's no facilities. I mean, the terrains themselves are perfect, I think. They're very good. But in terms of the actual venue, I don't think it gets in the top 10 for me.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't put it in my top 10.
I'll tell you what would get in mine. I think Harrow. I love Harrow.
Yeah, well, I mean, from the last update I saw, because obviously I was a Harrow Pétanque Club member for many years. They moved to the Thames Valley region just because they were playing in their league and stuff. But the venue's been, you know, I think it was the land was being sold for the last, I think, 8-9 years. They've been talking about it. It sounds like the club was very close to folding numerous times. Certainly, I'm pretty sure they're not running any events there anymore. They might still meet up to have a game, but I like the piece. The main piece were challenging, especially when it was dry. There was some variance, but yeah, it looks like from what I'm hearing, it's going to be a venue we're not going to hear about much more, which is a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. What about what's the one in that Hannah Griffin and Glenn Woodward?
Whitnash.
That's a nice venue. I think that's a nice place to play.
It is a nice place to play. Again, it's a good setup there. It's friendly atmosphere. Obviously, you've got the bar and the pub area as well. The only one minor criticism, but again, you can't have it always, is perhaps a little bit too easy, straightforward. Whitnash.
It's very tight as well, I find.
Yeah, but I would, possibly could make the top 10, I think.
They have worked on their pistes a lot.
They do a lot of work.
The ones nearer the benches and stuff, you can see they've tried to make them a bit more challenging. But yeah, I think that is the area for improvement. Again, there is a bit more work on the piste to make them difficult. But the venue is brilliant.
And I get the feeling. I always get the feeling they're willing to host competitions as well, which is a really good sign. Yeah, and they seem very proactive in that respect. So.
Before we try and figure out our top 10, any others you want to add into the mix? I mean, Hayling Island, bottom terrains. It's not really a venue, is it? I guess.
Yeah, they're decent pistes. I just love the weekend. Obviously, I'd be interested to see what the new interregional piece will be like. But another piece that I don't know if the club's folded or not, but I never hear about it anymore is Lordswood. That was a fantastic place to play.
No, that's still about. They're using that this year, I believe.
Yeah, I think England are using it for one of the competitions.
That's set in a nice, like with the bushes and the trees and that. It's quite a nice setting, actually.
I loved it, yeah. And every piece was different because you had obviously the forest around it, creating contours on the piste. They made some really good variants. Every time you used to show up there was a barbecue on the go at 7 a.m, whatever it was. It was a good venue. It's a shame it doesn't get used anymore. I remember the Kent Classic used to be held there when I first started playing. Definitely one of my favourite venues.
No, Lordswood is a very good venue.
Any others for any more? Southampton City?
I've never been to Southampton City, I have to say. To the club anyway. It's
a good little venue. It's your standard club venue, but it's a nice terrain. You know, it's pretty basic. It's flat and a bit stony, but not nothing that you can scoot on it, absolutely. But it's got a nice clubhouse. It's in a nice area. It's open to the elements a little bit, but yes, it's a nice.
It's a decent venue, but I don't think
it's not national standard. No. What about then? Then we're going to do our top 10 in the next couple of minutes. What do you think then? Should there be a criteria for, like, what I'm trying to say is, do you think there should be a national criteria from Pétanque England? If you want to run a national event or a ranking event, you must have this type of terrain, this facility, blah blah blah. Do you think?
I'll answer that. I think the answer should be yes, but it can't really be yes. That's the problem, because in an ideal world, personally, my own view is that you want to be making sure that national competitions, in particular on the toughest pistes possible, to get the best players and the best competitions.
Well, at least variance, right?
Yeah,
like, a variance of piece is key for a national.
Yeah, variance, but also difficulty as well in that sense. But the problem Pétanque England have got, and this is where I feel quite a bit of empathy for them, is that they're very reliant on venues willing to take it on, if you know what I mean. So if you have a criteria, you could end up having
nothing,
if you know what I mean. That's the problem with it. So ideally, that would be fantastic if you could have a criteria, but it's very reliant on venues putting themselves forward. Like, for example, it's fantastic to see that Leicester, be interested to see what their venue they've put their self forward. So my answer would be ideally yes, but it's not realistic.
Feasible. No, it's not. Talking about Leicester then, what's that? Where did we play the Euro Cup that time in Leicester? Was it Leicester Banks? Was it? Where we
I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, that's a nice venue. That's quite a nice piece there.
Yeah, it is a decent venue. I'm not really sure what's happened with that. I don't think it's usable anymore for some reason.
Oh, that's odd. Right then, let's get into it then. So what we saying number one is then? Let's start from the top.
This is where the
let's pick one each, right? And then we can see if there's
okay. Yeah, I'm up for that.
So I would kick off and say I'm going to go Gravesend just because they've got the indoor, well, the covered facility. For me, that's unbeatable.
That, Vince. I go Gravesend.
Number one for me would be Worthing.
Well, unfortunately, Sean, you've been outvoted.
Okay.
I'd put Worthing second, 100%.
Yeah, I'll be happy with Worthing second.
Okay.
Happy with that, Gravesend and Worthing?
Yeah, that's fine.
Number three, I would go Arlesey. The only reason I wouldn't have Arlesey in the top two is because as much as I love it, I love the piece, I do think some of it, if not a lot of it, is down to luck at the end of the day. As much as you can look where you want to play, you do not know what's under them stones unless you move the stone. So that's my only. I would have it in the top five. Third place would be happy with me, but that's.
It's funny because that's actually I don't actually agree with that. I think it probably was like that, but it has got better, as in it's thinned out a little bit, so you can see your landing areas. The reason I wouldn't have it in the top two, and I do agree with you on that, is that I think the venue as a whole isn't as good as Gravesend or Worthing in terms of food precision facilities. It's still pretty decent, but not as good as Worthing or Gravesend. Plus, you can't get as many pieces in at Arles. If you wanted to hold a massive competition, it would be quite difficult.
No. Right then, number three then, I'm going with Heckmondwike.
I'm going with Arlesey, and I don't think there's such thing as luck.
I can tell you, there definitely is.
Yeah, Sean would tell you there definitely is. Sean, what do you think then?
Arlesey for number three for me.
Okay then. So number four then, are we going to go with Heckmondwike?
Yeah. I'm trying to. I'm torn because if I had to choose where to play, I'd say Lordswood would be my next preference.
I've got no issues with Lordswood, but I personally think I haven't played at Lordswood for about 5 years, so I can only go off what I'm being a bit recency biased here. But
so Meadow or Heckmondwike then?
I'd have Meadow in fifth and Heckmondwike in fourth. Personally, I don't know.
I agree with Hoff. The reason being is there's more pieces at Heckmondwike.
Yeah.
At Meadow, you don't have the option to hold a big competition.
So we're going Heckmondwike fourth and Meadow fifth.
Yeah.
We can review this at the end, but that's good so far. So what about then sixth then? I'm still not thinking Lordswood in sixth place personally.
What about the Plough?
Plough.
What, in Chiltern?
Yeah, I used to play there quite a bit. I haven't been there for ages, but there was some nice variants in Peace. It was a nice little venue.
There definitely is, particularly with the back pistes.
I don't know where. Have I played there, Sean? I don't know all the Peace and Chiltern.
Yeah, you did. You played in the interregionals there last year. We lost to Matt, Johnny, and Phil on the front piece.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, that's good. But those front pieces they're not good really. They're literally like playing billiards.
No, but the back pieces are. Yeah, I wouldn't have it over any of the others we probably talked about. To be perfectly honest.
What about then? So 6th place. What we're saying? Do you know what? I think Oxshot would be in my top 10. Not as a whole, as a venue as a whole.
I would put Lordswood above it personally.
Yeah, I'd put Lordswood above it. Yeah, but I would have Oxshot at 9 or 10 probably.
Yeah, absolutely. So 6th place then. What do you reckon then? Harrow or what's the venue we said in Coventry where Hannah and that play?
What about the Rain Swan?
Oh,
now that is a good shout actually. But is that a good venue? It's a small pub, isn't it? It's got. I'm not convinced it would be.
Yeah, so they probably lose brownie points on the facility side, but a good challenging piece down at the bottom.
Yeah, I'd have Rain Swan for me would be in the top 10. Yeah, I don't know if it's changed a little bit now, but yeah, it would definitely make the top 10 for me.
What about Arundel as another one to add in?
Nice facilities, very good facilities, extremely boring pistes.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they're just very samey.
Okay, no, I agree. So 6, should we say Lordswood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chuck Lordswood in there at 6. We can always review this after. We'll get our top 10. 7th place then. I'm going to throw Harrow into there. I really rate Harrow.
Yeah,
Hanbury Gardens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can count either of them as venues anymore. That's if not, okay. I think Hanbury Gardens would be probably higher up the list for me.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you said that, because it's no longer usable.
Yeah,
that's the problem with Hanbury Gardens. But isn't Harrow usable now? Isn't it still?
Yeah.
Usable?
Well, basically, if I asked them to use the venue, they wouldn't be able to give me an answer until a few days before. Well, a couple of weeks probably before the event, because of where things stand at the moment. They even play their league games at Burnham now. They don't play them at Harrow because of things going on.
Oh, right, okay.
So number 7 then, what are we saying? Are we saying Harrow or are we going to chuck in?
I'd happily say Harrow because I guess it's still technically a piste.
Yeah,
Harrow. Number 8 then. Here we go. We're getting to the nitty gritty here, where there's a few that could probably go in here. But
so what do we have left? Oxshot.
So I'll tell you what I'd do for my last 3. I'd do 8 as Rain Swan, 9 Whitnash, 10 Oxshot.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
Yeah.
Rain Swan, number 8. Yeah, I think Rain Swan's a great venue. Trying to think if we've missed any out though, because.
Well, I'm glad we've missed out Nottingham, but let's not go there.
Oh, I don't know. Nottingham is. I for one, and I don't mind saying this. I don't care if people hear this. I do not like Nottingham at all.
Nor do
I don't like the venue. There's no toilets. It's
the only thing I'll say is I agree with you in terms of the pistes, definitely, but they do put a lot of effort in on the day. The people who run the
100%,
stuff they do.
Oh yeah. I'm never
say the people and the organisers are probably the only positive thing about the Nottingham venue, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. It's not like it's a 4-hour drive for me either.
They get the bonus points for having probably the most pistes available as well in England. It's one of the largest venues, which is why so many events have been held there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There's just something about when I go and play there. It's I struggle to enjoy it as much as somewhere else.
Personally, I think it's ideal for certain types of events, but not your higher end national type events.
Yeah,
personally.
I agree. Right then, so this is our top 10 then. This is what we've come up with. Number 1, Gravesend. Number 2, Worthing. Number 3, Arlesey. Number 4, Heckmondwike. Number 5, Meadow. Number 6, Lordswood. Number 7, Harrow. Number 8, Rain Swan. Number 9, Whitnash. And number 10, Oxshot. Seem fair?
Yeah.
I'm quite comfortable with that, and I'm sure people listening will chip in if they disagree. So.
Cobbitts will be argued for the top 10 as well, wouldn't it? It'd be a toss-up between Cobbitts and Oxshott, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
But I think Oxshott has the better facilities.
I think Oxshott just beats it because it has that top terrain where it's got about 12 piece where they're a little bit more challenging than what Oxshott's 2 are. So
I think they attempted as well at the top to build a completely different type of piste, but I think they butchered it by accident. Like I think they put way too much gravel and it became just a pit where you threw your ball and the ball stopped. But I think the intention was to make it a big stone type piste, but it became a pit instead. So maybe that's something that will change.
I think that's a good top 10. I'm sure people would disagree. It's very subjective, but yeah. I think that's a good top 10.
Okay, then
we're right. We've got the microphone. So.
Yeah. Okay, we'll leave it there, and we'll have a short break, and we'll be back after this break. Hey guys, thanks for choosing today's Feet in the Circle podcast. We really appreciate all your support here at the Pétanque Show. We'd also appreciate it if you could head over to the Caro Le Crapard Facebook page and online shop to view all their latest equipment and clothing. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the show. Welcome back to the Feet in the Circle podcast. Next up, we're going to be talking about lockdown and how it may or may not affect us moving forward when we come back to play on the circuit. So, right, lads, what have you two been doing during lockdown? Have you feel like it's been a real waste of a year, but in terms of getting out there and playing, it's been very difficult, hasn't it?
Yeah, massively. I played, obviously, your shooting competitions and the Belgian ones over the spring and summer, but as soon as autumn hit and now into the winter, no, I have not thrown a ball at all.
You also had a lockdown baby, though, didn't you, as well?
Kind of, yeah.
He is a lockdown baby.
Kind of, but I can't play in this weather. That's a big problem of not having ballodromes, really, but yeah, so yeah.
I've been out probably since the turn of the year. I've been out probably 6 or 7 times, but every time I've lasted half an hour tops because the idea of going out and throwing some ball is fantastic, but the actual doing it is horrendous. You're really not gaining anything in this weather. You're not learning anything. If anything, you're resenting it. So
it can be detrimental. You'll notice, anyone who plays winter leagues and things like that, one of the issues of playing in winter and it's so damn cold is you can't use your wrist as well. And because you're using your wrist, you overcompensate with your arm, your leg movement change. And then when you get to the warmer weather, you find yourself having to adapt back again. So you kind of take one step forward, adapting to the winter, and then 2 steps back, maybe. So.
Yeah, I've said to various people that I think I'm going to put in the hours once at the end of February, maybe the beginning of March. I think when the weather starts, consistently getting to 8, 9, 10, 11 degrees, I think.
Yeah, when you're not freezing your nays off.
Yeah, when did I say I went? I went a couple of days ago and it was 2 degrees and I thought I was really buzzing. I really wanted to throw some balls. So, you know what, I'm going to go and throw some. I literally got to the terrain. The terrain was rock hard where it was icy. I threw about 20 ball and I was like, what is the point in this? I was like, I'm going home. So that's basically what I did.
Yeah, it's absolutely pointless in my view, playing in the winter. Like Vince says, it can in fact be detrimental. So you have to wait till it warms up a little bit.
So with that in mind then, with no one playing and the lack of ball and lack of tournament, the lack of match, we say in football match fitness, but that's basically what it is. Do you think it's going to have a real big impact on the standard of play when we come back? Is it going to take a while for people to get back into it?
So in England, I'm going to say not much, actually. I don't think there's going to be a huge impact. And the reason why I say that is we're one of the only countries in Europe without an indoor arena. So we don't really have an off season. We always have a really long off season. So a lot of our players in England are used to not picking up a ball for 6 months and then getting back in the swing of things. So what I'm hoping, and it's certainly something I endeavour to do, obviously I've got a kid on the way, so it might not be that simple, is when I use the lockdown to your own benefit. I'm sure, Tony and the junior coaching staff are saying it to the juniors. There's a great opportunity to really, really work on some stuff with all the time you've got alone. Get to a piste and work on some stuff, video yourself, You know, these kind of things could improve your game. I mean, you're a good example. You know, you spent a lot of time this summer just going out and shooting, and you really, you know, you felt you got some benefit from it, and you got some good results in your shooting competitions. That's the sort of thing people can do.
I think, like any sport, if you really want to get better and go into a season as best as you can, you have to immerse yourself in it. And I can only talk of experience as being a budding footballer, as every day I was out practicing, whether no matter what, for 3-4 hours a day. And it really does make a difference. But as we've always alluded to in our sport of pétanque and how tiny it is, the commitment levels are not worth the rewards, if that makes sense, overall. And that's not any that's not being derogatory to any tournaments or to wanting to play for your country. But if you weigh it up, you know, at the end of the day, if you're going to put in 4 or 5 hours a day to, you know, win a couple £100 at a tournament, you know, is it really worth it? And that's just the decisions people have got to make at the end of the day. I feel it is worth it because I love pétanque.
Yeah, that's the answer.
And I put the effort in when I needed to. But others like Sean, who can probably testify now he's got a child, and you will probably find this as well, Vince, when you have a child, that it becomes a very difficult balancing act.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, practice is overrated. Just throw it in the general direction.
What philosopher said that?
That's Sean Prendergast II.
Something will happen.
I think Descartes said that.
Just play for luck, and you don't need to worry about any of this practice malarkey. No. In all seriousness,
The best thing is, people are listening to this going, "That's true. He's right." But that's actually how Sean does it. No one here is listening to this podcast and thinking, "Oh, he's just mucking. He's just sarcastic here." They think you're actually telling the truth.
He makes his own luck, because there is no such thing as luck. You play positively and make something happen, and like you said, you throw it in the direction. If you get the right direction, then you're going to make something happen.
Oh, Vince, I love you.
It sounded like he's a novice.
No, I've never believed in luck ever. I think you reap what you sow. You know.
So if you did the lottery and you won it, it's not lucky.
No, because I chose the right numbers.
You just knew the numbers.
Yeah, I chose the right numbers on that given week.
I think that's a good philosophy to have, definitely. Yeah. But in terms of, it's going to do. I think I agree with Vince. Actually, I don't think it will make a huge amount of difference because we don't. Yeah, like Vince says, we don't play over the winter anyhow. So I'm not sure it will make a huge amount of difference. But once in fact, it might be that people actually show their ability even more this coming season, because people haven't been able to play for such a long time. Everyone's going to be chomping at the bit. Yeah, that means I think everyone is going to be well up for it when
just
comes back.
Just look at the couple of months we were allowed to play this year. The amount of gratitude and the great vibes that were on the piece, but the hunger was there for so many people. Those few months that summer, that spring of not playing really affected people, and I saw such a good vibe about everything when we got to play a few competitions. People realised, you know, you don't realise how good something is until it's gone, right?
Well, that was shown in the amount of people that played in the events. I mean, even the event that I've put up in March that, you know, is touch and go at the moment, it filled up in about 5 days, and I had about 10 different reserves, because people are, you honestly don't know what you got until it's gone. And that is said for a lot of things. And I think with sport in general, because it makes people so happy, even if you're not playing well or you're playing bad, you still miss that feeling. And I think we all are missing that feeling of just enjoying the camaraderie, whether winning or losing.
And that's why I think the ability actually, strangely, might go up a bit, because I think people will be chomping at the bit, but also I think there'll be less pressure because people just want to get out on the piece and throw ball. And when there's less pressure on your shoulders, you're more likely to be playing more freely. So you might actually find that you see some really cracking games in the season coming up. It'll be really interesting to see how it pans out, actually.
Yeah, no, I really don't disagree with that, actually. And we might see a lot of old faces back. I mean, we've already got one who's coming back. He doesn't mention it much, but we've got Ben coming back, haven't we?
I don't think I've ever seen Ben play. I've seen him do the worm at Harrow a couple of times, but bar that, he talks about comebacks, joins another region, and then doesn't play anyway.
He's good at the worm, to be fair. He's very good at the worm.
He's a natural pointer, isn't he, Sean?
He definitely is a natural pointer, one of the best.
Well, let's get away from Ben. He gets enough of the limelight. So we're in agreement then that we don't think much will change then.
Not major. It's all going to depend on how much competition time we're actually going to get this year, and if it goes ahead.
Yeah.
I think if it does, it's going to fill up very quickly. Especially if there's limitation on places. We saw that for the titles weekends. And we've got a new governing body, obviously, or new personnel in charge of the Pétanque England, and I think they're gonna put a real good effort in, like we saw at the titles weekend, to maximise attendance as well. Yeah,
I think you're right there. I think there's going to be it seems like it's going to be a real positive feeling going forward with Clive in charge and more of a forward-thinking direction. Now, don't get me wrong, the last president and whatever wasn't a bad president at all, but I think Clive has, a lot of good ideas that he wants to present. So,
yeah, hopefully no more backwards barrages or whatever that was. But we'll see.
Don't say that. Barry Wing will have your head.
Oh no, we've had in-depth conversations. It was a confusing scenario. But yeah.
The only thing I'll say that might. I'm kind of disagreeing myself a little bit here, but in terms of the ability side of things, is that the only thing that might stifle that is I'm going to suggest there'll be a lot of fresh, different teams this year.
Yeah.
If there's fresh, different teams, that means they've got to take a little while to gel together, because it's all well and good being able. You're not going to win much or perform well if you don't gel well as a team. So that might be something that kind of makes it a little less likely for people to be playing at their very best, because I think there'll be quite a few newish teams.
Well, you also progress a lot doing that, though. I mean, it's something that I, on purpose, have done over the last 2 years personally, is try and play with someone different for nearly every competition. And I just found it really useful, because I see other people's sort of way of thinking, even, or tactics, or, even the way they release the ball. I can watch it, a bit closer up. I found it really useful. So I think that it could really help some players. But yeah, you're right. I think in terms of things like triples, which is a pure team game, and all about dynamic, that is, you're spot on in that respect.
I think we don't put enough value on team camaraderie and togetherness in this country, especially like when we talk about selection and stuff. And I'm not having a go at anyone here, and definitely not Martin Hughes, but he definitely talks about putting people together who he thinks are the best players, rather than thinking what is the best team. And I think we lose track of just how important togetherness as a team is and how each other play. And it's no surprise that when Jack, Scott, Rowley and Kev played together for about 3 or 4 years, they got to the final of every tournament. They won everything, and that's because they knew they were best friends and they knew each other's game inside out. And it helped that they were very talented players, but I genuinely believe that even if they were, not as good as what they are, they still would have had a good few years because of that camaraderie.
Yeah, I think it's enough in England. I mean, I think a performance at a championship, I think it's a mix of the two, right? I think I understand the squad system and things like that, and if they manage to get a squad together, that you have to have enough time and potentially budget to have them fuse together into the dynamics that you're talking about. We don't have that ability at the moment. They meet up and play 5-6 competitions in a year. That's
because
not
we're an amateur sport.
Exactly.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And also, one thing I don't understand with a squad system is, and don't get me wrong, I'm not against having a squad, having a squad that plays together and trains together, purpose coaching, purpose training. But is it really that beneficial when year to year it can change? To me, I don't get that. Like, this, what I'm saying? Like, so this year, the men's squad is what? Ross, Jeremy, Reese, Sam, Rowley and Jason, which is great, fantastic, they deserve it. But next year it could be a whole different set of 6. So you lose everything you've just gained. That's what I find mad, because where we are an amateur sport, I don't get it. I really don't understand that. You lose everything unless those 6 qualify again. Then they're just going to go their separate ways again, aren't they? And play.
Yeah, you're starting from fresh again, aren't you?
Yeah,
definitely.
And one thing that in my interview last night with Sarah is she was talking about how important other countries put on keeping the same teams players together for more than 1 year. So they send the same team to, and I know to me this is. It's not feasible because, like Sean said, we're an amateur sport, but they try and keep the same team or nucleus of team together for 2-3 championships. And every year we change, don't we?
We do, yeah. I mean,
so we never get that understanding of playing together in a championships and playing in that environment with the same team for more than one tournament.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean,
there's loads of pros and cons. Yeah, absolutely. There's no the only wrong is selecting. That's the only thing I think is. The rest of it is open to debate.
Yeah,
yeah. I sort of with the squad system. I think if you're going to want to have the same heads year on year, pretty much. You know, for me, I think you need a bigger pool of players than 6. Yeah. And you need that whole group to be constantly playing each other. And then you have some sort of, at the end of each year, it gets reviewed and, 2 come up and 2 go down, kind of thing, into the B squad or whatever it is.
Well, that's what the MYA do, don't they?
Yeah, I think something like that would, because then you get real time and the consistent performers are going to be in that top 12, top 16 or whatever it may be. And you can really work combinations out and then creating the dynamics that you were mentioning earlier and stuff like that. I think, and then there's a way also for the ones that are not quite there, they can still get there. They're, 2 or 3, turning over each year, like a relegation, and promotion. I think something like that would be really interesting to see.
Yeah,
that's a bit of pressure. I think the biggest problem I have with selection, and we've gone over this a million times in the past, but is having the right people selecting, because you can't have in this country someone selecting players based on not enough data. You can, and also it lends itself to bias. Now, everyone will say I'm not biased, but let's be honest. If I made the top 3 and someone said pick someone to go with you, who am I going to pick? It's obvious it's probably going to be Sean, isn't it? It's obvious that it's probably going to be Jack because at the end of the day, they're the players that I play with most and they're the ones I feel most comfortable with. So there's always going to be an element of bias to selection. So the only way we can get selection done right is if you got 4 or 5 people in from overseas, like France, Germany, Belgium, whatever, and said, can you come and watch all our tournaments, create performance data based on percentages, averages, and then select your players from that, then there'll be absolutely no bias. But as Sean has said again, and I always go back to it, we are an amateur sport. And that is why it must be done on merit, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with pretty much everything you said, to be perfectly honest. And I actually don't think that selection is beneficial in terms of driving the sport forward either. I think it's likely to create apathy and drive the quality down, or certainly there'll be less quality because of it, is my own personal view in the long run.
I think less people will try and participate as well. We've seen that.
Quantity would be less as well, definitely. People always say quality over quantity, and that's absolutely right, of course. But I truly believe there are a lot of players on the cusp who have got the potential to represent their country, and we shouldn't lose sight of them, because if you start bringing in formats that kind of push them to one side, then you're not going to unleash really good potential there.
Well, they'll fall away, won't they? They'll just they'll alienate them.
Yeah.
And I think we get that now, really. I think a lot of people that I talk to that maybe who I think are good players or very good players who never really get the opportunity, they openly say to me, they say, look, what's the point? What's the point of me traveling to play in that tournament? Or because I never get a team good enough and I never get the opportunity. They say things like, wow, this person knows who he wants to go. He knows who his favourites are. And you know what? There's a bit of truth in that. And that's something that we've got to think about. And that's why, I like the idea of tiered licensing personally, but that's another story.
Yep, something for next week's episode, tiered licensing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we'll leave that there then. We'll leave that section. I think we're all in agreement that lockdown will have an effect, but not as big as what we think it will, because we do stop in England for a good 3 months as it is. So an extra 3 months isn't going to make too much of a difference, is it?
Hopefully not.
No, just get out and practice as soon as it gets warmer. If anyone's listening who wants to have a good season next year.
Yeah, true. Okay, well, let's move on to a section that I like to call over the border, I guess. I had nothing that I wanted to call that, actually.
Hashtag Brexit.
Over the border is good.
Over the border, which could be Ireland or Wales, but we're going to talk about France. And coming up is the PPF Grand, depending on where you're from, finals. Any who you think's going to win that?
I mean, the men's is almost impossible to call to me. I was looking at some of the teams. There's some really weird teams, which, I mentioned. I mean, the obvious one that everyone's going to say, right, you would think they're going to win would be obviously Rocher, Robineau and Lacroix. Yeah. They've dominated a lot of the French game. But there's some other sensational teams.
Team 11, Damien Heroux, Julien Lamour and Bruno Lebarstrana. I don't know how you say his name.
Borsico.
Yeah, now that is a team. There's a lot of firepower in that team.
What team's Souchot in? That's the one that's going to win.
Souchot, Kante, and Manu Lucien.
I thought we weren't talking about Chelsea tonight. Kante, I don't know. I don't think I know who Kante is. That's my ignorance.
What?
Are you winding me up? Philip Kante.
Oh, Kante, sorry.
Oh, are you one of those people who calls him Quintas or something?
Yeah. Kante. Of course.
I thought you were genuinely taking the middle.
No.
Yeah, I was
Kante,
lost there. I was like, what?
Martin would probably not, yeah. Kante, Souchot, and who?
Lucien. Very good point.
Okay, so yeah, I would say they're definitely up there with a chance.
I think the best player at the moment, that I've seen over the last year is that Mikel Benetto. I think he's been unbelievable.
Benetto is very good.
He is very good.
I think he can rival Rocher in the future.
He's got a much sort of loftier shot, and he tickles a lot more from what I saw. Might have been the piece when he was playing against Rocher, funnily enough. Kept tickling because he's got such a high shot, similar to someone like Federico in England, who hits a lot of ball, very loopy shot. If he's not bang on the money, he's tickling balls around.
The only thing is, he's really good looking as well, and that annoys me. Not only is he a brilliant shooter, he looks pretty good.
Yeah, I tell you, if I had to pick a team outside of Rocher, Robineau and Lacroix, the other one is that are in the top seeds. So Hat 1 is Puccinelli, Montoro and Benji Renault.
Yeah,
Renault and Puccinelli won the Marseillaise. I don't think they were playing with Montoro for that. But he's obviously been in the French team for the last couple of years as well. He's a sensational player. I think that team is going to take some beating.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin Phillipson, he's another great player, isn't he? And he's playing with Sauvage and Dionisi. I don't even know who they are, but I just thought I'd mention Kevin Phillipson. He's got an English name, so that we could just pretend, try and get some sponsors in and say, look at this English guy.
Yeah, there was one really weird team that I looked at and I was like, how the hell did they put this team together? Well, yeah, one where I just don't understand who's going to be shooting is Roman Fournier, Kevin Malbec, and Radnik playing together. For me, that is a lot of pointing ability.
Probably Malbec.
Yeah, you would think Malbec's going to shoot, but I've rarely seen him shoot up front in a competition like this.
No. Radnik looks like my dad. It's uncanny.
What about Souchot, Kante, and Lucien? There you are. Done.
I like Team 4: Sario, Ndai, and Foyer.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting team. I don't know how much Ndai has played with Sario and Foyer before, but that'd be a good one to keep an eye on. And then another one is obviously Fazzino. They're in the fourth hat, and this is the sort of team that can come out of their group. Christian Fazzino and Diego Rizzi. I don't know who they're playing with. Pierre Nallet, I've never really heard of him, to be honest.
Vince, you speak French, don't you? I don't know if anyone knows this. But what? How does it work then? What is this tournament? You must have read about it.
So this one, I believe, is they take the top seeds from the French game, from the ranking, and they create triples. Now, how they're created, I don't know for sure. I'm guessing it's something to do with, like
the seed number one just pick his team, and then the next one down the list.
Yeah, so there'll be Hat 1, so Chapeau 1, the first one, where you've got Dylan Rocher, Puccinelli, Montoro, and you've got Mason Dirk, and then Philippe Cante's team. They won't be in the same group. There'll be one team from each group pooled, a bit like the Champions League and seeding. Yeah. Now, how that seeding is made, I assume it's a combination of their total points acquired last year.
Yeah.
What that doesn't answer is how the triples get made, because you can see that those triples were not. That's not guys saying, right, let's play together. They've designed those teams,
Yeah. But do you think it's almost like if you're seeded number one? Just say Rocher was number one, which I think he was. So I think I've seen the rankings. Do you think he got to pick his next two, and then if he picked seed 2 and 3, then seed number 4 picks his next two?
I really don't know, to be honest. I can try and find out. But yeah, to be honest, it's just like it's for television. This competition mainly as well. It's a big,
fantastic event.
It's like watching, the Masters snooker or Masters golf or the Champions League, knockout stages.
When does it start?
I think it started today, actually, isn't it?
Next weekend.
Oh, is it next week? Yeah, it is. Yeah, so 28th to the 30th. Yeah. It will be. I'm assuming Daily Motion will show videos of it. YouTube will quickly have videos uploaded. Because it will be on French television for sure, but you can watch the previous years. It's some of the best games in Pétanque are in this event.
So come on then. Let's start with the men's then. Who's going to win it? Vince, you go first.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go Puccinelli, Benji Renault, and Montoro. That's going to be mine.
Prendergast?
Told you mine. I'm sticking with it. Sucho, Kante, and Lucien.
I like it. I'm going to stick my neck out and go for Sario, and Dai, and Foyer. Completely optimistic.
I'm quite proud of us. None of us selecting the obvious selection. That's good.
Well, we all want to go. Told you, we know our stuff.
Yeah.
And then running alongside the men's will be the women's game. Let's not forget about that. Now, there's 8 teams in this, and one of the players that I really love to watch is Cindy Poirot. She is such a great player, and I really think that her team will win it just as she's got her.
Is it Pétanque that you like, or is it?
Yeah, it's the Pétanque, mate.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I'll looking at the teams, there's some very even teams here. I mean, team 2 and 3, Peyro, Shop, and Doward. And then you've got Bandera, Colombe, and Sandrine Herlem. Those 2 teams are,
unbelievable. But team 7 with Caroline Bouriard, or how do you say her name? Boyle. She's I love how English I am. Bouriard. You're like, boy. So yeah, she's a very good player, and I don't know too much about the ladies' game. I know probably about 10 or 11 players there, but I think I can't look further than Cindy Poirot, really, her team.
Yeah, and Charlotte Darrod's obviously got a big
Darrod, you mean Darrod Des?
It's Darrod, yeah. I'll tell you should get on this is get Barry Wing. Just do an episode of Barry Wing naming all these names. It is class. Like ask him how to say Philippe Souchot. It is absolutely phenomenal. He calls him Souchard, I think, or something like that. But it's brilliant.
That's for another time. So come on, who's going to win it? Go on, Vince.
I'm going to go Colombe and Audrey Bandera, team 2.
Sean?
I'm going to go a bit off-piste here, and I'm going to go for Equipe 5, Emma Picard, Emily Fernandez, and Ludivine Love.
I like it. Good pronunciations as well. I like it. I'm going to go for Team 3, which is Cindy Poirot, Florence Shop, and Charlotte Darades. So that's what I'm going for.
You want these recordings to go to
How
French
very
listeners.
English of you.
I'm going to dub it. Like, it's going to be hilarious.
So one player that won't be there is Kiki Dubois. So for those of you that don't know, the guy was banned, was it today or yesterday or recently, for 5 years for basically starting a fight with a spectator. Vince, as our French-speaking correspondent, can you tell the viewers of what happened last year?
I remember watching it at the time, not knowing about what had happened. And to be honest, I haven't watched the clip back. But from my understanding, it's the last 16 of the Marseillaise.
Yeah.
And some man in the crowd is purposely putting off this guy while he's playing every single shot. Understandably, 40-degree heat, long 2-3 days of competition, and someone at the end of it is trying to wind you up. You're going to get annoyed. I think that's a granted. He lost his temper and he attacked the guy in the crowd.
Yeah.
Now I don't know to what detail he lamped him or anything like that. What I do know is he approached him aggressively and he's taken a 5-year ban. So yeah, that's the basics of it. It's a bit like a Cantona moment, at Man United. Just one idiot too many in the crowd, basically.
Do you think it was justified 5 years for that?
Do you want me to answer that first?
No, either of you, yeah.
Yeah, go on, Vince. You answer it first.
Because this is an amateur sport, I'm going to say no. I think I don't condone violence. I don't think he should have reacted the way he would, but he should have had instant disqualification from the competition and then squash it from there. I think the guy in the crowd should have had a much more severe punishment. He should be not allowed a license or anywhere near a piste again. It's extremend disrespectful. I mean, these guys are putting in a lot of time and effort, and these guys at that level, a lot of it is they spend a large amount of time devoted to the game. So for that reason, I would say no, it was not justified. You could maybe say a year ban, but for me, disqualification, a fine if you wanted to. But 5 years is like a prison sentence for someone who will live and breathe pétanque.
Did the spectator get punished?
I don't know. I hope so, and I hope he's not allowed anywhere near a piste again.
I take a different view. I think 5 years is harsh, don't get me wrong, but I do think a ban is appropriate. At the end of the day, you can't control what someone else is doing to you, You can't then go lash out at someone, no matter how bad it is. At the end of the day, like you just said, he's at the top level. He's at the top table of this sport, and he's also got to be a role model at the end of the day. And okay, if someone's heckling you, say your piece. Say, look, sorry, mate, can you please shut up? Or ask the umpire to shut him up, or tell the umpire to remove him. But to react in that way, I just think is totally out of order. They're both out of order. Don't get me wrong, but you can't react in that way. Not at all. Not with physical violence.
But when Kieran Dyer had a punch up with Lee Bowyer at Newcastle, did they get a 5-year ban? They had a public punch up on a football pitch, a proper sport, like a premium. Proper sport is the wrong word. A premium sport, and I think they got a suspension for 5-6 games.
But Vince, you've heard the saying, 2 wrongs don't make a right.
But it's comparison. It's weighing it up, I mean.
Yeah, but you see, I think football probably got it wrong in that respect, and they probably did with like Eric Cantona's another example.
He got banned for 9 months, to be fair.
Yeah, see, I bet he kicked someone in the chest in the middle.
Yeah, no, that's wrong. Yeah, it should have been.
Arguably, it should have been longer than that. Do I think 5 years is a bit overzealous? Yes, probably. But at the same time, a ban absolutely is appropriate because you cannot use violence towards somebody. Does that mean the spectator shouldn't get punished? No, the spectator probably should get punished if he was proven to be acting in the way you say. Then yeah, he shouldn't be anywhere near a stadium again, to be perfectly honest, in that respect, or for a prolonged period of time. But you can't use violence. Like Dave says, you can't control someone else's behaviour, but you can control your own. And as soon as you start using violence, then you are setting a dangerous precedent if you don't take some sort of action against that. Imagine if he only got a fine, like you say, then basically what you're saying is, if you're violent to spectators, don't worry about it, you won't get banned, which is not a good message to be sending. However, you do have to balance it with what's fair and proper. And 5 years, like you said, Vince, is like a prison sentence.
Over the top.
This is their day-to-day love.
Yeah, I would say somewhere
5 years is heavy.
Probably reasonable.
I think a 2-year ban, a 24-month ban would have been more than enough, even 18 months maybe. But he had to be made, at the end of the day, he had to be made an example of, because you don't want that coming into the sport. And I've seen it actually playing in Dunkirk, where the travellers, or so-called French gypsies, have started fights, and it's not a good look for the sport. And at that level, when there's a crowd and there's money involved and there's sponsorship, I think, unfortunately, he deserves.
Yeah, if we want to be taken seriously and treated as more as a professional sport, then it's imperative that some sort of action in terms of a ban was taken. But 5 years probably is a bit too much. But they're basically setting an example of him, which I can understand that, because you can't be doing something like that in such a major tournament as well. I mean, if I was violent towards another player or spectator, I'll be honest with you, I'd expect to get banned. I would expect to. Yeah. It'd be an absolute expectation of mine to get banned.
And on the flip side, in our country, just think of the ban Danny Soriano got. Now, what is it he alleged to have done? What, kissed a girl's hand, and I think he smoked some weed, didn't he, on the terrain, which at the end of the day was wrong, but he got a massive sanction, and he didn't hurt anyone.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't hurt anyone.
So, yeah. Anyway, should we leave it there, lads?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for the first episode, it went really well. So, yeah, let's do this again. Hopefully everyone listening would have enjoyed that pilot episode, I'm going to call it, because it's the first one we're ever going to do. So, yeah, thanks, lads. And join us next time on the Feet in the Circle podcast. Bye from me.
Bye from me.
See you later.